and he nodded his head. He nodded his head, yes, that he thought it was intentional. Wendy, is that going to be admissible, assuming that we catch this perpetrator and the perpetrator is put on trial?
It most probably will, Lisa, under a couple of different theories. One of the things that makes that most important in a case like this, where motive matters, although legally you don't have to prove motive, that's what's helping investigators in deciding who did this. We live in a day and age where social media allows community members to be literally the eyes and ears of law enforcement when it comes to searching for somebody like this. The fact that he was able to nod and tell us that's an intentional act, that's going to be something that's going to give a huge clue to law enforcement in trying to decide, did anybody have anything against him, who would have wanted to torch the place, etc. So not only will it probably be admissible in court, it's also a huge piece of evidence in leading us to the killer.
Well, Yodit, obviously this was an intentional attack. I think that's probably the easiest part of the investigation. You have somebody who's dressed in a disguise, who brings a flammable liquid, who goes in, throws it at this poor man, puts it all around him, and ignites him in flames. Obviously, it was an intentional act. So I think if you're defending the defendant who ultimately gets put on trial, I don't know how important that particular piece of evidence is to you.
I mean, it isn't. I mean, there is no defense. This was someone who had an idea to go into the store. I mean, obviously, he prepared. Like you said, he had the proper attire on. He knew how to execute this plan. I believe that Wick just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Had he been in back and his coworker out in front, absolutely. If it was anybody else there at the time, they would have been the ones that would have been burned.
So, Yodit, spell that out for me. Like, you think that this perpetrator just went up to a random person who was a clerk in a gas station and set him on fire?
Well, I mean, as of right now, we don't know anybody that had anything bad to say about this young man, right? And so there are people who just want to do bad things to bad people.
That's
Those
true.
are right. So no one has to have a reason to do these things. I believe just from the way things just are planned out and laid out. I mean, he was in and out so quickly and then rode off on a bike. It just seems like he just wanted to hurt somebody, and he did.
Yeah, and Tom, let's talk about that bike. This is the getaway car. It's a cruiser. It's a bike. It doesn't even have speeds. I mean, this is bizarre to me that this perpetrator would commit such a horrific murder, and then this is the getaway vehicle.
Absolutely. It might also be a truth-telling that if he rode a bike, he's nearby. He may live in the immediate area around that gas station. Once again, this is a community of about 3,100, so everybody knew this guy. Everybody knew Mr. Wicks. And as for riding around on a bike, it's good for getting into tight places. This is a logging town in Northern California. There's a lot of undergrowth. There's trails, things like that.
Looks hilly.
So it's an alternative way of getting around without having to stay on the main street, which is Highway 299 that runs through there.
Okay, but Tom, has the bike been found?
Not yet.
I mean, what's the explanation for why this guy would be on a bike in a hilly community? I mean, I guess you're saying he can get into some narrow area, but I mean, we don't generally see people commit crimes and then try to get away on a bike. I mean, maybe this is some kind of, actually, let me go to Yodit on this. Yodit, does this look to you like some kind of evidence of a mental defect that somebody would use a bike for this kind of crime?
Possibly, or youth. It can actually tell the age of maybe the assailant, because we don't know what this person looks like whatsoever. So this may be someone who couldn't drive, who didn't have a license, and just had a bike. So that can also be a clue.
Okay, and Tom, last question to you on this story. What's next for these investigators? What are they looking for?
Well, they're certainly trying to get as much information out of the community as possible on who might have had something against David Wicks or the Shell gas station to try to find out who this is, who would have done this. And they're looking, of course, at all angles. Why the bicycle is obviously one of the more important ones. You know, where is this bicycle? Where did they find the clothes, the yellow clothing that this perpetrator wore? That's pretty bright clothing to be riding around on a bike in a dark, in the dark of night. a few days before Christmas.
But
and
I'm thinking
pulling off
that
something
slick
like this.
rain gear is the kind of thing that DNA does not necessarily stick to, and he's got the hoodie on underneath. So listen, anybody out there who has any information about this, please contact law enforcement immediately. Any information whatsoever, even if you think it's insignificant. And up next, a mother and her 3